Amid high inflation and an energy crisis worldwide, footage was captured last month showing hundreds of oil tankers secretly shipping Syrian oil to U.S. military bases nearby.
This scene took place in Syria's northeastern province of Hasaka, the country's major oil and grain producing region. Recently, convoys of tanker trucks can be frequently seen shipping oil from Syria's oil-rich areas to U.S. military bases in neighboring Iraq.
Why is the U.S. smuggling oil out of Syria? How long has this been going on? Well, to find out, we went through dozens of media and government reports and had a thorough conversation with an expert on Middle East affairs. And here are the answers. Welcome to FactsTell. I'm Sina. According to Tasnim news agency, the U.S. has been stealing oil from Syria since the Trump administration. Yet in doing so, the U.S. is not only stealing oil from Syria, but further destroying the food basket of this war-torn nation. Its people are suffering from daily food shortages and high prices.
إذا برجع نفط يعني أمورنا بتصير بخير، بترجع أمورنا مثل ما كانت والشيء بيرخص، بصير العالم كلها تاكل تشرب، اللي بصير في حركة شغل بالبلد، يعني هلا حركة شغل دائرة كتير، يعني هلا الواحد بيروح بيشتغل دوب بيشتغل بحربة الخبز، يا ما بيشتغل فيها كمان، يعني الوضع شو بدي لي أكثر من هيك صعب على كل البشر.
الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية عم تسرق النفط والقمح بشكل يومي، صهاريج وقاطرات ومقطورات للقمح عم تسرقوا من محصول ومن خيرات شعبنا، عم تسرقوا وعم تبيعوا برا، واحنا عم خبز ما في، خبز كله ما في.
So when exactly the U.S. starts stealing oil from Syria? How long has this been happening? Bobby Nadri, an expert on Middle East affairs, shared his insights with us.
The oil theft has been going on from day one of the occupation. The whole idea is to offer oil and energy or fuel to American war machine in Iraq and of course in Syria, at the same time to appease the proxy forces of the American government who are fighting the Syrian government. They need money.
In late 2015, the first American ground troops entered Syria during the Obama administration. Now you might start wondering how much of Syria's oil had been stolen. Let's look at some figures. According to Syria's Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, the country produced 14.5 million barrels during the first half of 2022, with an average daily production of around 80,000 barrels. However, up to 66,000 barrels were being stolen by the U.S. occupation forces and their mercenaries. That means the U.S. smuggled out about 80% of the country's entire oil production from fields occupied in the eastern region. But America itself is an oil superpower. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, America produced over 1.1 million barrels per day during the first 6 months in 2022. The amount of oil it takes from Syria on a daily basis is a mere fraction of its daily output, only 0.5%. And bear in mind that although there has recently been some tension between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, the U.S. has had strong energy relationships with countries like Saudi and Qatar for decades. These are Gulf countries with far greater oil reserves and daily output than Syria. So this doesn't make any sense at all. For an oil superpower like America, with strong allies like Saudi and Qatar, why would it bother to steal oil from Syria? Yet it did, and for a long time. And it seems that whole operation was well planned. Well, let's look at some history. Syria's oil fields do have a bumpy history. They fell into the hands of ISIL for some time since 2014, but after the jihadists were defeated in their last stronghold in the east, the Kurdish-led US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, or known as SDF, quickly took control of those major oil fields. Back in 2019, even though then US President Donald Trump had announced a complete withdrawal from Syria, he walked back his decision and left a few hundred troops in the country. Why? He admitted publicly that it was for the resources. But why would America need to secure Syria's oil specifically rather than using its own or that of its allies? Well, there are 3 reasons. Feeding America's occupation forces in the Middle East is the first.
the occupation regime needs oil to stay in Syria. I'm asking you, if that is not the case, how on earth is America able to export or send oil all the way from the American territory through the Mediterranean Sea and into the Syrian territory in order to fuel its war machine? That is unthinkable and impossible, especially given the fact that we are in the middle of a global energy crisis.
But that's not all. The SDF also needs oil to sustain itself so that it can fight against the Syrian government forces and hopefully topple the current leadership.
The oil money and the oil theft helps the occupying regime to continue and to prolong the occupation of Syria.
And last but not least, the US takes away resources so that the local Syrian government has nothing to rely on and strengthen itself.
America wants to deprive the Syrian government from its own oil and money to prevent it from offering help to its own people and to rebuild the country's ruined infrastructure.
That's why one US defense official bragged once about US owned 1/3 of Syria's resource-rich territory.
And that 1/3 of Syria is the resource-rich, it's the economic powerhouse of Syria. So where the hydrocarbons are, which obviously is very much in the public debate here in Washington these days.
So now we can understand that under SDF governance, the US military can just drive right in those areas and smuggle as much as oil they want with an endless convoy of tankers. Yet these oil fields are supposed to be returned to the Syrian people and its government, which is desperate for access to its oil fields, and it has to import significant amounts to sustain its people. Meanwhile, the US has constantly been trying to make oil importation much harder with strict sanctions, which only makes the suffering of local people much worse.
الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية هي العدو الأكبر سوريا، هي اللي دخلت بحجة انه طرد الارهاب، اخذت القمح، اخذت النفط، حاصرتنا اقتصاديا، يعني شيء لا يطاق العقل. بالنسبة للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية هي عدو للأمة وللعالم كله.
Yet, America can always find excuses to rationalize its behaviors and its military presence. For example, it claimed that it was in Syria to protect the local people and fight terrorism. Yet America's entire so-called war on terror has been suspected from the very beginning.
The war on terrorism was a flop from day one because those who attacked the United States mostly came from Saudi Arabia. But America didn't invade Saudi Arabia. It attacked Iraq, Afghanistan, and other countries in the region.
Alright, even if US forces did fight some terrorism in Syria, this should have ended as early as 2019. A Pentagon report released in 2021 cited USENICOM in stating that ISIL's targeting of US and coalition forces in Syria has been infrequent and generally ineffective. The group stopped carrying any deliberate attacks against US or coalition forces in Syria in January 2019. Yet the US armed forces didn't leave Syria at that time, and the country wasn't the only one going through hunger, turmoil, and resource theft.
You built and formed proxies to stay there, to prolong the war on occupation and terrorism and instability campaign against the Syrian government. Why? You want to put a puppet government there. The same argument could be made about Libya. Libya is still in turmoil. Afghanistan doesn't have anything. America left, but it also froze its assets. How on earth as a government can you run a country when you don't have any money?
That's a really good question to ask. How can a government run a country without any money? But apparently that's not what America is concerned about. It's busy thinking about how to effectively steal and sell more of Syria's oil. In the past, it could run oil businesses through companies like Delta Crescent Energy. It's an American company incorporated in Delaware. It used to operate in northeast Syria under the protection of the SDF and the US military. After Biden took office, Delta Crescent Energy was shut down, as a manifesto shows that the US occupation forces are not in Syria for its natural resources. Yet Executive Order 13582 only prohibits US persons from participating in transactions in Syria, not the federal government. That's why the US armed forces continue doing what they have been doing for years, boldly stealing what belongs to Syria and its citizens. On August 10th, a video taken from a helicopter was widely shared on social media. showing a convoy of US troops illegally transporting oil to bases in Iraq. But what's inside those tankers is not just oil, which the US has plenty of. It's also the resources Syria's citizens can count on to refinance and rebuild their hometowns. The hope that they can have a better life and the sole opportunity to develop their motherland. Yet all of what we call basic human rights have been violated ruthlessly.
America's human rights campaign is the same as its democracy campaign. It's a ruse to control and influence the world. Having a safe and decent life, a prosperous future for yourself and your kids is a human right. And these rights are being violated day in, day out in Syria. The Syrian people are unable to send their kids safely to school. They cannot find a decent job. They cannot see their destroyed markets, schools and hospitals being built. So these are violations of human rights under the UN Charter and the international humanitarian law.
This is when promoting democracy and human rights had turned to pure piracy, in which the essence is to rob and do whatever it takes for profit. This is also not about a war on terror. Instead, this is about creating terror. While the Syrian people struggle for bread, there seems never enough for the takers.
So we want to worry about our things. We're keeping the oil. We have the oil. The oil is secure. We left troops behind only for the oil.
That's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you like our show, please leave your comments down below. And remember to like and subscribe our channel. I'm Saina. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.